thank you. Let's have a look through the papers with Michael Booker and Vicky Beeching. And actually, as we're talking about Harry down there in Australia, he's in the Mirror this morning, Michael. I mean, looking at this interview that they've had with this Taliban leader and just highlighting how there really were plans in place to kill Prince Harry on duty.
Chris Hughes' exclusive, they say it's day 2 of this, and you know, the Mirror are trying to reposition themselves as an intelligent tabloid, and it's something like this which will go somewhere to help them, you know, to do that. But again, it took him 5 months to get this interview and to set it up, and it's really, you know, it's been a big piece of work, but these things can't just happen overnight, so it takes a while to get these sort of things. And within it, he talked to this guy, Qari Nasrullah, who is a Taliban warlord and one of the leaders there, talking about how they did target Prince Harry. He says that our warriors, it meant our fighters didn't exactly have a soft spot for him, to put it mildly. As far as the Mujahideen were concerned, he was an ordinary soldier who was fighting for America. This is how we view him. He may be a prince in Britain, but to us, he's merely a common soldier. And then they take the hat off to him and said there were many plans to capture him, but maybe it was a good luck he managed to escape. So, and this does sound like he's not just some nut talking. He is a guy who does know what he's talking about. But it's just good that you can, like I say, it takes a long time to get something like this together, and you just got to take your hat off sometimes to the opposition and Chris Hughes for doing this, because it has been a good read the last couple of days. Yeah, I agree. To the eye inside pages, looking at Pope Francis. Yeah, they're calling it a Vatican Spring. Is that a fair point?
Well, it's basically Pope Francis proving to be ever more revolutionary. He's visited Assisi for the first time, which is famous for being the hometown of St. Francis, who is the saint that Pope Francis took the name of. And it's just great because the Pope, I think we'd all agree, he's surprised us with how humble he is, how down-to-earth he is. He doesn't live in the Gold Palace, he lives in the Vatican guest house, he doesn't wear all the fancy outfits and the red shoes. And I just love that about him, and he's basically calling for even more of a return to simplicity in the church.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because he is actually sort of following the teachings of St. Francis, the idea of a church of and for the poor.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what we all want to see happen, isn't it? And it says in this piece that he was actually delayed, he was 45 minutes late because he wanted to visit a charity for seriously disabled children. He wanted to meet them, he wanted to kiss them, he wanted to spend time with them. He allowed them to delay his schedule, and I think that's the kind of leaders of the church that we want to see today. And he just really stands out as a shining example, I think, of wanting to strip away all the baggage and the paraphernalia and get back to what being church really is all about.
Does this mean with all this, because the Catholic Church is a bit like the royal family, and it's very slow to change. Change happens, but it takes generations. Are we going to see a rate of change in the Catholic Church that we haven't seen before?
I think we'll see as much change as is possible for a pope to make. He says in the interview that's quoted here that he wants to bring as much change as he can, but he's held back by the Curia, you know, the kind of governing body. But he shocked everybody recently in an interview by saying that Curia, that governing body of the Catholic Church, was like leprosy to the Pope. That's fairly shocking. So he's basically saying all of these constraints are really difficult for me. I want to bring change. I'm going to do as much as I can. So I guess we'll be able to see through his time in the role how much change is possible for him to bring.
Not always a favourite, though, with conservative Catholics. One quoted here saying that attacking Pope Francis for letting loose with his thoughts.
Yeah, well, he's obviously not liked by those who love the control of the establishment because he is quite revolutionary. So
I just have a picture.
Them.
There's a sad pair of red shoes somewhere not being used.
Maybe give it to you.
I'd look good enough.
I'll tell you, I find it really interesting, actually, that we are seeing what we're seeing in all of this. Anyway, I want to move on to The Guardian, Michael, if we can. Killer hornets.
Terrifying, this is. There's been the odd bit and bob in the foreign pages this week, and the Guardian have done a full job on the giant hornets that are killing a lot of people in China. Now,
killing people?
Killing people in Shanxi province. Over the past 3 months alone, hornets have killed 41 people and injured a further 1,675. Now, there's some testimony here from people who have witnessed some of their friends being killed by hornets, which isn't particularly nice at this time of the morning. But so I'll spare you the details. But these hornets, the Vespa mandarinia, They are killer hornets. They're like the smell of people's sweat, alcohol and sweet things they're attracted to, and they're found in cabbage patches and all sorts, all over the place. Now, just reading through it, in the main piece of the copy, it doesn't mention anything about further threat here, so I was quite happy. Then I got to the little breakout piece on the right-hand side where it says heading for Britain, ? And it got to the last sentence where it says Britain is on high alert for its inevitable arrival, because it's already in France. It was accidentally introduced to France in 2003, where there's been a handful of deaths, and it's spread to Spain, Portugal and Belgium. But it is inevitably coming here, according to Professor Stephen J. Martin, who is from the School of Entomology and Environment at the University of Salford. So run for your lives. We're going to get killer hornets at some point over the next few years.
It's saying here that it's the same size as an adult's thumb. And it flies at 25
See,
miles an hour.
I once found a bee up my shorts when I was a kid, and that sent me terrified. So if there was any killer insects around...
It says here that their stings carry a venom potent enough to dissolve human tissue.
Wow.
That is so
It's like
disgusting.
one of those sort of bee movies.
Invasion of the Hornets.
It totally
No,
is.
it's a hornet movie.
There's a bit of a feminist overtone. Oh, nice.
Oh.
It says here that the males can't sting. It's only the women. So
Well,
Ain't that the case?
yeah,
Female, the deadlier in the
as
species.
is true in life. Hey, Gillian. I know.
I know what you
Terrifying.
I
mean.
can't sit here and take that.
I know my place. Let me tell you, Gillian's got me on a very short string here, haven't you, Gillian? Let's have a look at what's going on with these chickens.
This is absolutely amazing. So, a couple decided they would rescue 2 battery hens. And there was a small problem with them because they were used to being kept in captivity in the battery farm, and they were let loose in the garden, and apparently they got very, very cold. And so they decided the way to fix this was to take these 2 chickens to a local tailor and have him make them 2 little chicken fleeces. So now they have their own special outfits, and they've been wandering around in the garden feeling quite warm. But
What is that? Is that like a woolly jumper?
It's like a fleece
It's like
vest
a tabard,
made for a
doesn't
chicken.
it?
Yeah.
Sort of thing you get in a cafe in the
It
60s.
does look like she could do with a tray and
She's
some
about
cup of tea.
Fry up some eggs.
It's brilliant. And the tailor apparently said it was the strangest request he's ever had. And the other thing I love is that the chickens are called Margot and Valerie.
She looks very pleased. Old Margot there.
I hope they don't take them off in the summer, because if that gets too hot, they'll sort of self-broil, won't they? Self-basting jackets. So, lovely, thank you. Got more coming up for you in just a moment. So we're looking through the papers with Vicky and with Michael to food photos. Vicky, it's out of vogue, apparently.
It is. I don't know about
Did you
you.
ever do it?
I'm a social media addict,
Oh, you
as
do
you
it,
know,
don't you?
and I love taking pictures of like coffee with kind of the good barista
Why?
swirls, or
Why?
desserts.
Vicky, why?
Well, I couldn't do that this morning. I've just been brought a coffee down from our
drink
bar.
it.
Listen, our barista this morning's just dumped the foam in.
I
Mikey.
think for me, it's a bit like a scrapbook. I'm sort of saying, this is what I've done, and I can look back and see the things that I did, the places I went. But according to this new research in the Journal of Consumer Psychology, actually looking at these pictures of food doesn't make you want to eat more. It makes you want to eat less.
Gotta be a good thing.
It actually gives you sensory boredom. So apparently, if you look at all these pictures of food, you're actually more likely to eat less and lose weight, because it's almost like you have the sensory experience of eating the food just by seeing it.
Good.
So it's probably the opposite of what we think.
I don't buy into that.
I can see the appeal of... I mean, I don't do it, but I can see why people take a picture of a nice meal. What I'm a bit baffled by is the people here saying... giving pictures of crisps, chips and pretzels.
I think it gets a bit extreme. I mean, I think if something
I
looks
wouldn't take-
exquisite or outstanding,
Yeah,
it's worth taking a
maybe.
picture, but people have taken it to the nth degree, I think, on social media.
But I remember, probably a couple of years ago now, there was a food advert for a certain supermarket on with a chocolate pudding, and you cut into the middle.
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
it
chocolate.
oozed.
I mean, that just made me want to
Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah, it makes me still want to eat them all.
So I
The
don't
thing
get
is,
it.
if you really stuck to this premise, surely then you should show what it looks like after the human process.
There are
Only you,
people.
Nick, only you.
There are people who do that.
Well, I'm sure there
Because
is.
there was a programme on Channel 4 that I saw.
Thankfully, that's not such a great viral trend on social media.
was students. Students, honestly, this is
Oh
what
my
they do.
goodness.
This is what they do. Take pictures of things.
Wow.
Anyway, what's this one about, Michael, in
This
the mirror?
is a chap who, he was a bit sozzled. He was called William McNeil. He was in Blackburn Station and he thought, I'm going to have a lie down. So he had to lie down on the tracks instead. And as he was asleep, a train thundered over him at 50 mile an hour. Now, the traumatised driver saw this chap as he was approaching him, tried to brake, He went past him, couldn't find the body. Then they investigated a bit closer, found this chap still asleep, but with a cut on his head. He's been taken to court and he's been sentenced to a year in jail. So, yeah, it was a bit of a miracle.
That
but
is
now
a miracle. That's incredible.
But his luck didn't last that long, and the judicial process has seen him sent to jail. Well, basically, you know,
Quite right,
the poor
too.
driver.
I
Yeah.
know.
But,
Yeah.
you know,
It's been so
in a way, very lucky.
So he actually slept down the lines. Of
He was on the line. He looks as though he was in the
Some
perfect
skillful
position.
positioning, isn't it, for somebody that's completely
I
drunk?
think that only happens in films.
Well, do you know what? Actually, I sort of think he deserves a year in jail.
Oh, yeah,
That's
definitely. He's having the
awful.
driver. He thought he's killed someone.
Yeah.
Totally. The irony,
Oh.
being that lucky and then unlucky.
Grim. Well, yeah. Well, but he gets free accommodation for a year.
Get his head down for a year.
So-
Always look on the bright
There you
side,
go.
don't you?
Honestly, it's just
Such
absolutely
an
bizarre.
optimist.
Thank you. It's been really good to see you both this morning. A reminder, it'll go for you two as well. If you want to look at tomorrow's papers tonight, you can do it in our press preview, which is at 10:30 and 11.
Oh, they're not as good as us,
No, they're not as good as you. Nowhere near, but they try their best. They try their best. Let's get a check on the sport with. I'll call you Charlie this hour, but you can call me.